Hello and welcome to Shanghai for the second edition of the Giro d'Italia Ride Like a Pro. 89 kilometres worth of racing on the Sunday, but it all kicked off on the Saturday with lots of activities. In terms of the weather forecast, it's reasonably cool at 15 degrees, but that makes it slightly warmer than what it was just 12 months ago, when some of the stars of the Giro d'Italia were on the start line. But this year, the main focus is many of the stars of Chinese cycling. Amongst them is Wang Zhong, number 519, who is a former Asian champion way back in 2013. Also amongst those, right up at the start line, this is Li Qingpu in the white colours. They've done well with the race organisation in the manner in which they've got the list and the names and the numbers right next to them. This year's Giro d'Italia in the battle for the coveted pink jersey. Day one, that belonged to the World Time Trial champion, Filippo Ganna, in the rainbow jersey, collecting the first Maglia Rosa. The dominant sprinter in 2020 was the French national champion, Arnaud Démare, who didn't simply win once, twice or three times. He took home 4 stages. Into the mountains, and Tao Geoghegan asserted his authority. As João Almeida was slipping out of pink, Geoghegan was making his presence felt. The final day of decision, that was in Milan, as Jai Hindley was leading the race going into the final day, but it was Geoghegan who charged home to claim the title and write his name in the history books as the first ever British winner of the Giro d'Italia. A taste of the history of the Giro d'Italia, which has been brought to China for the second year. And last year, the man who took out the race was none other than Alberto Contador, himself a former winner of the Giro d'Italia, likewise the Tour de France and the Volta a España. In the pink colours, at number 103, you can see on the start line, that is Gu, and he is a former Chinese champion that was in the road race back in 2014. A few of the riders, you can see, they're just a little bit cold before the race gets started. On the Saturday before the big event on Sunday, there were lots of activities in the start village, much like we do see at the Giro d'Italia, with a chance for those that were coming out to visit to experience some of the culture of the Giro d'Italia and much of the local culture as well. The dignitaries making the presentations to get things underway. There was a circuit race on the Saturday, which included a lot of expats living and working in Shanghai and enjoying the opportunity for a taste of European-style racing. Bell lap, it always brings up the pressure with one to go, but the most important thing was there was lots of smiles on plenty of faces, including many of the kids who were out there enjoying the ride. In addition to the circuit races, there were also team time trials held on the Saturday, an opportunity for those that train together to get the chance to race together, and a few of the kids to test themselves on the home trainer. Team time trials are often a feature in the Giro d'Italia, and taking home the team prize was one stacked full of pride. Great to see the colours of pink, the famous leader's jersey of the Giro d'Italia, the Maglia Rosa, and good to see the colours of BMC in amongst the kids that were participating, and perhaps a youngster unveiling himself as a future world champion. Just under 80 riders on the start line for the elite category of Ride Like a Pro, the second edition of the Giro d'Italia Ride Like a Pro in China, but somewhere in the vicinity of 1,500 competitors in the mass participation event, which will be getting started 20 minutes after the elite riders. Amongst those on the start line, some of the retired Chinese stars of the past, including a number of Olympians who competed in both Rio and also in London. Some of them on the track, a few of them on the road. Let's now take a look at the course that they are confronted with. It is 89 kilometres, so it's been extended by some 15 kilometres over what the course was last year. The good news for those that don't like the mountains is that this one is relatively flat. They make their way out through the outskirts of the suburbs of Shanghai. Just a few corners to contend with in the first 15 kilometres before they start to head towards some of the great destinations for the tourists. Blue Bead Chain is one of those. It's stacked full of lakes. lakes, and in that vicinity around about 25% of the area is covered with water and is a popular spot for both local tourists and international tourists. As they head up towards the halfway point, they're not too far away from making the turn, and then it's through the one and only intermediate sprint, much like we do see in the Giro d'Italia, which in 2020 was a category that was dominated by the great Frenchman Arnaud Démare. Then it's the journey back towards the finish area, which is in the same region as the start line. So logistically for all the riders, that makes things fairly simple. They get their bag to the start, they get the race done with, and then they get to chat with their friends afterwards and tell the story of how their day went. Reasonably straightforward as they head back past the temple in towards the finish line. Just that one tight turn, and then it is down through the last battle into the line to see who takes out the second edition of the Giro d'Italia Ride Like a Pro. Always the nervous moments before they get started. A few of the riders riding with big reputations to uphold, and others looking to see if they can get the better of them. Zheng Long was one of the riders who last year competed and finished in third position. He's another one who's back this year. Huang Li on the start line, number 108, one of the stars of Chinese cycling. She's a former world champion and an Olympian from London in 2012. Some of the biggest stars of Chinese cycling, they get the privilege of being right on the start line at the front. Let's now take a look at a few of them. This is Huang Li, who I mentioned just a moment ago, world champion on the track back in 2012, and she also represented China at the Olympic Games in London. Qing Chenglu, who in 2016 took out the Asian Championships. Zhao Jingbao, who was the winner of the best Chinese rider in the Tour of China in 2015. And that's quite an accomplishment. There's lots of star-studded internationals who ride that race. Huang Dongyang, who was the winner of the Asian Championships 2 years running back in 2016 and 17. Gu Jingchuang, who was the national champion in 2014, has lots of experience on the road. Who'll need all of that experience today, as will Zhu Stafei, who was the winner of that title 3 years ago in 2017. This is Li Jingsong, who was the national champion in 2016 and is certainly a rider to watch in this race. He was very competitive last year, finishing in third place in a race that was taken out by Alberto Contador. In second place last year was Alessandro Ballan, one of the stars of Italian cycling throughout the 2000s, who was the world champion in 2008. A couple of thumbs up at the start line and a wave as well. Final instructions before they get started. Number 319, just checking his brakes. That is Fan Yang, who rode the Olympic Games in Rio in 2016. And we all look forward to seeing what happens with the Olympic Games in 2021 as opposed to 2020. I do like the belt on the bike of number 103. That is Gu, who was the national road race champion in 2014. And that's a rubber ducky to let anybody know, with a little bit of the squeak of the rubber ducky, that he's on his way past. The hooter goes to get them started. They all roll out. It's good to see there's both men and women racing together. Last year at the very beginning of the race, where there was somewhere in the vicinity of 15 international stars of the sport, including the likes of George Hincapie, a rider of the Tour de France on 17 occasions. Robbie McEwen was in the race as well, a man who won 12 stages at the Giro d'Italia. They were pretty keen to try and control things early on. They were anxious about some of the locals wanting to make a big name for themselves and get the better of the international stars. And one of them who certainly did perform well was Zheng Long, has a really strong reputation on both mountain biking and road cycling. Relatively calm start. The cool conditions normally take the edge of things early on. It's a little bit warmer than what it was 1 year ago. Last year, it was leg warmers just about all the rounds. The temperatures were around about 5 degrees. This year, it is 15 degrees as they make a start, 89 kilometres to race. But the pace early on is already being picked up. That is Tang Hao, who is on the front in the blue colours, just taking a little bit of a sneaky look underneath the arm to see if he's got any company with him. One of the challenges of this course is that the road surface is so good. Having the opportunity after the race last year to get the chance to talk to Andy Schleck, who participated, a man who finished in second position in the Giro d'Italia in 2006. He said it was one of the best road surfaces he has ever ridden on. Number 119 at the back of the race, that is Qingpu, who was an Olympian in both 2012 and 16. And significantly, he was a winner of the King of the Mountains classification at the Tour of Taiwan some 7 years ago. Not too many climbs to contend with here, though. Still just tapping away out in front, the one sole leader in the blue colours. Big task to go solo on a course like this one. Last year throughout the race, we saw an aggressive performance being put in by the great Frenchman Sylvain Chavanel, who was really keen to try and break away from the peloton, but he found the going just a little bit too quick, and the rest of the group got themselves well organised. At the back of the race, number 321, this is Ni, a 27-year-old who's making his first appearance in this race in just the second edition of the event. An opportunity to take a look at one of the beautiful spots that we have just on the outskirts of Shanghai. The aerial shot really does tell the story of this beautiful region. This is the Shanghai Oriental Parklands that we now get an opportunity to take a look at. Shanghai Oriental Land is one of the largest outside school education places in Shanghai, and is a landmark of Shanghai and its implementation of a strategy to invigorate the country with both science and also education, and really promoting a quality education. It has 8 parks, including Wisdom Avenue District and the National Defence Zone. Ten kilometres down, the peloton still all together at this point. Good to see a few spectators on the side of the road, and they've got their phones out capturing the images. And this is an aggressive move early on. We've seen a few attempts earlier of riders to get away, starting 20 minutes, I should say, after the elites. The mass participation ride now getting underway. Some 1,500 locals and expats making the most of the opportunity to experience the Giro d'Italia ride like a pro. And we saw in this event 12 months ago, lots of the riders that had participated on the Saturday, they tried to get themselves organised and see if they could work together as a big group, and just how far off the pace they were from the elites. This looks like another one of the great water reserves that we have on the outskirts of Shanghai. This is the Jingsha Country Park. It's renowned for its wetland characteristics and diverse group of aquatic species. And these images really tell the story of how beautiful the area is, with its marshes, its islands, and its inland beaches. With the Dalian Lake at the centre, the Water Township farmland is demonstrated throughout this beautiful park. Small breakaway group now after 30 minutes of racing, desperately trying to get itself organised. They've opened up a handy little lead on the peloton, or what's left of it. And they do appear to be working fairly well together. Sitting in second last position, number 313, that is Zhang. He was the rider that was fairly aggressive earlier on. One of the younger riders in the race at just 21 years of age. He has said that his cycling hero is none other than Mark Cavendish. The great Mark Cavendish, a winner of 30 stages at the Tour de France. Not quite as many, though, at the Giro d'Italia. The record holder at the Giro d'Italia, that is Mario Cipollini. Blue bead chain that we now get a chance to take a look at on the right-hand side of the screen as the breakaway group continues to work well off to the left. And this is composed of 7 lakes and 1 significant river, covering a total of 33 square kilometres, of which 25% are water. The Blue Highland is a demonstration of the green economic development along the Yangtze River Delta area. And the Fenhu High-Tech Industrial Development Zone isn't too far away either, and this covers some 258 square kilometres, the region that it sits within, with a population of just on 250,000, and this is at the hub of both employment and technological development. A significant employer in the area, and all showing the cutting-edge technology of China. Qingpu town, another one of the more popular tourist destinations. This, along with the development of the Yangtze River Delta, the integration of both the national strategy and adopting its heritage, green waters and green mountains, along with the future. And it is the home of one of the biggest production facilities on the outskirts of Shanghai. Back to the leading group. They've been out there now for 42 minutes. So well organised, this race. You can see the witches' hats off to the left, just to keep everybody safe as they make their way across the bridge. And this is one of the points where they'll be heading back in the opposite direction. So they're keeping the riders to one side of those witches' hats, as when they make the return trip, they might encounter some of the riders from the mass participation event, which has some 1,500 starters. The weather started out okay. It's looking a little cooler now, as we get an opportunity to take a look at the ancient town of Zitang. Though it is small in size, this ancient town boasts a long history. The present layout had already taken shape before the Song dynasty and had become a renowned trade centre for farm products, silks and ceramics. The ancient town is amongst the first batch of famous historical and cultural towns in China. It is a national tourist attraction. As we pick up the leaders now, this leading group, they have an advantage of 24 seconds over the chasers. Number 306, this is Han Zhujiang, 33 years of age. He says that his cycling hero is Julian Alaphilippe, a man who rides with great panache, and Han today is doing exactly that. He's riding with real panache in the ilk of his hero, Julian Alaphilippe. 3 leaders are working well together. Number 501 in the grey colours, he's got the full leg warmers on, which tells the story as to the weather conditions today. This is Li Jingson, who has ridden a race of the calibre of the Tour of Langkawi. The Tour of Langkawi is one of the big international races at the start of the season in the Southern Hemisphere. A lot of riders who participate in events such as the Tour Down Under, as they make the journey then back towards Europe, they also participate in the Tour of Langkawi. So Lee certainly has plenty of international experience. It's a chance to take a look at those participating in the mass participation event. And it's looking as if this is quite a serious race as well. Number 112 at the back of the group in the pink colours. He's the only rider in this group not wearing the leg warmers. This is Chen Long, the 27-year-old who upset the apple cut last year by finishing in 3rd position in the race. There was a huge host of international stars who have performed brilliantly at the Giro d'Italia historically that participated in the race last year, and they were hoping to have all 3 spots occupied on the podium. But the man in pink, Chen, had a different story to tell, one of his own. He got in amongst the likes of Alberto Contador and Alessandro Ballard. They were 1st and 2nd place, and Chen finished in 3rd position. He's got good pedigree on both the road and on the mountain bikes, so we know that he's got good bike handling skills. This is the chasing group, a group of 4 riders at 1 minute and 35 seconds behind, so they continue to lose ground on the 3 leaders who are working really well together. Back with the leaders, this is Han, and then it is Lee, who is sitting at the back of the group. He's got the King of the Mountains polka dot helmet on. I do like that. And now in the pink colours, Chen, who says that he trains at around about 400 kilometres per week. His cycling hero is Peter Sagan. And before getting full on into cycling, the sports that he participated in were gymnastics, running and swimming. Combine the cycling with the running and the swimming, and he could turn into a very handy triathlete. And no doubt with that gymnastics background, he's got pretty good bike handling skills as well, as he knows what it's like to be in a precarious position. Back to the chasing group. Plenty of encouragement. They're trying to get themselves well organised. This is Wang Mingchao, who's now making his way through. Number 302. More renowned as a track cyclist, so the distance may just get a hold of him today. They are almost at the halfway mark. 89 kilometres in total. The race having been lengthened ever so slightly this year by comparison to what it was last year. They've now been racing for just over 1 hour, which means that their average speed is well over 40 kilometres per hour, so they are moving out in front. So too is this group in the mass participation events. Back with the leaders, 5:01. This is Li at the back of the group, who has ridden, as I mentioned before, the Tour of Langkawi. He was a member of the Giant Continental team. Giant Continental, one of the strongest teams in the Asian circuit. Now rolling through to the front is 3:06 in the blue colours. That is Han. 30 years of age, didn't ride the event last year. He has finished as high as 6th place in the national championships. That was a long time ago, back in 2008. In fact, he backed that up a few years later when he actually won the National Road Race Championship of China back in 2011. Not surprisingly, 3 of the strongest riders in terms of their CV and the results that they've collected throughout their career have emerged at the front. Lots of conversation going on between them. No doubt plenty of encouragement to try and keep themselves going and continue to build this advantage that they have, which is more than 1 minute and 30 seconds over a chasing group of 5. But from our last images of that chasing group, it started to look as if they were splintering ever so slightly. The good news for the Breakaway is we look down towards the trees. They're moving around a little bit, but it doesn't look as if there is significant wind. So that allows them to work really well together. They can stay nice and cohesive, swap turns. You get roughly a 30% drafting advantage when you are sitting behind somebody, by comparison to being the one who is at the front and punching a hole in the wind for the others to get through ever so slightly easier. Now out to 1 minute and 48 seconds, their advantage over the chasers. And there's some good caliber riders in that chasing group. Zhang Chulong is amongst them, who has been a runner-up in both the Chinese National Road Race Championships and the individual time trial championships. And no doubt the 31-year-old Zhang will be trying to get that chasing group to work well together. Their way through one of the intermediate checkpoints. That's important, particularly for the mass participation ride, so they can tick themselves off with their electronic transponders, which you can see on the front right-hand side of the fork of the bike of the rider in the blue colours. That is Han. And also now at the back, this is Chen, who we see in the pink colours, now squashed into the middle. Each of the riders, they get an electronic transponder onto the bike, so there's no confusion as to who it is that's out in front. But sometimes we have seen that actually cause a little bit of confusion in the Giro d'Italia and other big international races, when one of the stars of a team has actually had a mechanical problem or they've had a crash and they've swapped bikes with one of their teammates, and it's a different transponder that goes across the finish line. Then the race officials, they have to refer back to the camera at the finish line and tick off the number on the body as opposed to the one on the bike to check who it was that went across the finish line. This is the chasing group at 1 minute and 40 seconds behind. But the good news for these 4 is they have the slight numerical advantage with 4 versus 3, and they are working really well together. Rider in the grey colours at the back, though, just sitting on ever so slightly. There's one of the youngest riders in the race, just stretching out his legs. That is Jin, who's just 18 years of age. more renowned as a track cyclist than a road cyclist. So no doubt the 89 kilometres today will be testing his endurance. Good news for the leading group of 3. As you can see that sign down on the road, welcome to Shanghai. Indeed, welcome to Shanghai. Beautiful part of the world. I had the opportunity to be there on the ground last year for this event, doing the commentary this year remotely, but last year was a great opportunity to explore Shanghai and really enjoy the event on the ground. The weather looks as if it is improving. The little bit of drizzle that we saw earlier on, that appears to have stopped. The roads are dry, so that will make the corners as safe as we can hope for. Right at the front of that group, that is Li Jingshong, a 23-year-old who has managed to pick up medals at the Track National Championships of China. He was the second place finisher in the points race on the velodrome. He also picked up second place in the Omnium, which is cycling's equivalent to the heptathlon, multiple events on the velodrome. So it shows that Li, who is the rider in the grey colours now at the front, he should pack some good finishing speed. It could be relatively tough to beat if these 3 can survive off the front and do a battle in the sprint finish for honours. The blue colours now rolling through to the front. That is the 30-year-old Han Zhujiang. In addition to cycling, the other sport that he participated a lot in as a kid was running. Back to the chasing group, and they continue to work well together. Three riders in the blue colours, the one in the purple. The rider in the purple colours, looks like it is Fan Chao, 24-year-old. Windspace, the name of that bike. Not a bike brand that I'm aware of for the rider that is in that chasing group, but certainly looks very aerodynamic. Back to the mass participation event. Nice to see a few spectators out on the side of the road to encourage them as they make the challenge of combating the 89-kilometre ride. And nice to see plenty of them wearing the famous pink colours of the Giro d'Italia. Incidentally, the leader's jersey at the Giro d'Italia, the Maglia Rosa, is pink because the newspaper which started the Giro d'Italia, La Gazzetta dello Sport, is printed on pink paper. Much as we also see at the Tour de France, that's a yellow jersey to denote the leader because L'Auto, the newspaper that started that race, was printed on yellow paper. Still plenty of conversation between these 3 leaders. You can see another rider that was just on the other side of the road going the opposite direction. That was one of the riders in the mass participation event. An opportunity for him to take a look across at the road and see what is required to be out in front in an event such as the Giro d'Italia Ride Like a Pro. Chinese cycling continues to go from strength to strength, particularly the women on the velodrome. They've got a great track record, so to speak, on the velodrome. Their road cyclists are continuing to improve. They've had one rider participate at the World Tour level in recent years, having ridden some of the big Grand Tours. He has since retired and hopefully passing on his knowledge to the next generation of Chinese cyclists coming through. This is Li at the front in the grey colours. Takes a look across. Next one through, this is Chen Long. The grimace on the face from Chen Long is certainly telling the story of the pressure that is being applied out in front. 3:06, this is Han, the 30-year-old, the oldest rider from this leading group. He's making the most of the motorbike, just getting that drafting advantage off the motorbike. The former national road champion of China, a title that he won 9 years ago. So he has more experience than his breakaway companions, but he's getting a little longer in the tooth. Will it be experience or youthful enthusiasm that comes out on top? Meanwhile, back with the chasing group, good to see plenty of nutrition is being taken on. In a race of this duration, just short of 90 kilometres, it's important to keep eating and keep drinking. Don't really need to eat any solids in a race of this length. More importantly, I'm sure that we'll see a lot of the riders will be consuming the carbo gels. Nice quick shot to keep the calories up and keep the fuel tank right the way towards the top. As the old cliche goes, if you wait until you're hungry, it's too late. Likewise, if you wait until you're thirsty, it's also too late. Dehydration will be starting to set in. Bit of activity back in the mass participation event. A few riders trying to break away from this group. The gentleman in the pink at the front riding the Trek bike, he's looking for some of the riders behind him to share the pacemaking. Not sure whether it's a case of them not being keen to share the pacemaking or not quite capable of contending with the tempo that is being set. Just over 30 kilometres remaining. You can hear some of the conversation out in front. And there in the blue colours, Han making sure that he stays on top of the calories as well, taking on one of those carbo gels that I spoke about. They get into the system really quickly. It takes just slightly longer than what it takes for water to get into the system. Water generally gets into the system within around about 6 minutes. Those carbo gels, they get the blood glucose going in the space of around about 8 minutes or so for the system to be able to absorb it. Another one of the tourist destinations. This is Langtang town. Has a long history of folk customs. It is the hometown of Comrade Chen Yun, a revolutionist of the older generation. Red, green, ancient colours, the three colours Langtang has created a unique landscape and has become one of the best business cards for Langtang's publicity and a way to attract plenty of visitors. Opportunity to take a look at the Yangtze River, which runs down through a lot of the course of this race. If you ever get the opportunity to visit Shanghai or China at all and get a chance to take a look at the Yangtze River Delta, it is well worth taking a look at. To drive across it on one of the many bridges, it is a real insight as to just how significant that river is. The hallmarks of this event is there are no issues whatsoever with security. It is one of the best organised events you are ever likely to see. They've done a wonderful job in the space of just 2 years to put on such an event. Back to the chasing group now, which has been dwindled down to 3. So they've managed to shed themselves of a few of their former companions, but most significantly, what was at one point a deficit of 1 minute and 42 seconds is now down to 1 minute and 2 seconds. So the 3 chasers are still in with a chance. Classic piece of Chinese architecture, which no doubt would be having the tourists diving for their phones to get a snapshot. This is the intermediate sprint. It was Li taking the intermediate sprint ahead of Han, and then Chen in 3rd position. Get back to Zhao in 4th place. Significantly, the intermediate sprint, you'd imagine that the riders out in front, they wouldn't have necessarily contested the sprint 100%. Perhaps just an opportunity to test the legs of each of their breakaway companions, as we might be now starting to see a very early game of cat and mouse as they're inside the last 25 kilometres. Jiangma Village is the next of the tourist destinations that we get a chance to take a look at on the right-hand side of the screen. This is part of the south gate of Zhujiazhou, an ancient town in the south of the Yangtze River. Jiangma Village has been rated as a national civilized village and a national beauty village, one of the most beautiful leisure villages in China, providing a great example of the classic Chinese landscape. A few attacks now starting out in front. In the blue colours, Han Zhujiang does not want to bring this down to a sprint finish. And it's caused a little bit of discussion between the other two. Well, Han is the older of the 3 riders out in front at 30 years of age, but he has listed the charismatic Frenchman, Julien Alaphilippe, as his cycling hero. And these tactics of trying to attack his breakaway companions are the exact tactics that Alaphilippe would adopt. Julien Alaphilippe rides with the famous Quick-Step team, De Koenig Quick-Step, and one of the riders who used to ride with that team, Paolo Bettini, a dual world champion, participated in this race last year, the great Italian who is affectionately known as the Crickets. Back to the chasing group, still working well together. This is Zhang, who is at the front doing the pacemaking. And you can see the bike that he's riding, it's got just the one chain ring at the front. There's no front derailleur, so that allows his bike just to be ever so slightly lighter. It reduces his amount of gear options, but on a course such as this one on the outskirts of Shanghai, it's predominantly flat. He won't need a small chain ring, so that's not a bad option. And it's starting to splinter out in front. That's Chen Long, who has now got on the attack. He's forcing the other two to chase. This is Li Jingshong, who is leading the chasing in the grey colours. Chen sits up. He figures that's not the move that will work. A little bit of a wry smile on the face as well from the two chasers. Li and Han have brought Chen back to heel. Another move. It's Han once again who goes on the attack. Quick reaction. Classic one-on-one racing. And with three out in front as opposed to just the two, it provides more opportunities for somebody then to launch the counter-attack. One attacks, somebody chases, rider number three waits, and then page one out of the race handbook is counter-attack straight away, as the rider who has attacked has spent some energy, the one chasing has spent some energy. You've been sitting the slipstream, and it's your opportunity to seize the moments. And the more often these three keep attacking each other, that provides a greater chance for the three chasers to continue to claw back some of that deficit. The last time check we saw, with 24 kilometres remaining, it was back down to 1 minute and 2 seconds. Mass participation race is going well. This rider at the back of the group, you can see the gilet or the vest that they're wearing. It looks as if they participated in this event last year, because that is the vest that was given out to many of the riders who did participate in the inaugural edition of the Giro d'Italia Ride Like a Pro China. Just on 13 kilometres to go for the three leaders. They've been together for a long time, almost 2 hours worth of racing, and they're disputing who takes the top spot in the Giro d'Italia Ride Like a Pro. I'm not sure whether that wind that you can see in the trees is from the chopper. I think the chopper's a fair way up in the air, so the breeze is starting to pick up. This is Baowu Temple. The temple in the lower courtyard of the Jade Buddha Temple in Shanghai. It's located on the bank of the Jiashan Lake. The temple is full of ancient trees. Among them is an ancient and famous tree named 0004, and it is believed to have been planted in 950 AD. Inside the last 10 kilometres, it's still three out in front. So despite all the attacks, nobody has been able to break away. That is Li in the grey colours with the polka dot helmet on. He would no doubt, based on the fact that he's wearing that helmet and has ridden a mountainous race such as the Tour of Langkawi and survived the Tour of Langkawi, would love a couple of climbs in the last few kilometres to try and break away from these riders that he has spent the whole afternoon with. Unfortunately for him, it's a fairly flat run through to the finish line with a perfect road surface. This is Han now on the front. He swings off, he takes a look across. Chen Long in the pink colours has been spending a bit of time at the back, sitting on, saving his energy. This is Chase Group 2, which is now starting to dwindle down. That is Zhang Chunlong, who is in the pink colours, leading the chasing. Just behind him is Wang in the blue colours, both working fairly well together. Wang in the blue, a 26-year-old, who's got a fair bit of experience on the track, a good sprinter, no doubt, as a result of that. Wujiang in the pink colours, a former silver medalist in both the road race and the individual time trial at the Chinese National Championships. They are not surrendering. They are still at a deficit that has them almost within striking distance. They're a little bit over 1 minute behind, but with this flat run into the finish, it still provides them with an opportunity if the leading three start to play the tactical game of cat and mouse, waiting for the sprint finish. It has happened before. They are working well together. Wang, it is in the blue colours, who now goes through to the front. But the bigger the riders at the back, Zhang, he doesn't get quite as much of a drafting benefit as Wang does when he swaps position, just based on their substantial size difference. Good to see so many people out and joining the mass participation event. Some 1,500 riders taking to the start line in this year's edition of the event. Great accomplishment. Once they make it through to the finish back in Shanghai, they'll get the chance to take a look at the presentations for the top three place getters. And at this rate, it is between the three that we've seen out in front almost all day long. In the blue colours, this is Han, who's starting to show some of the ill effects of what has been a tough day out in front. Li in the grey colours, and in the pink at the back, playing a very patient game, this is Chen Long. And he keeps missing turns. He's letting the others do all the pacemaking. He's riding very cagily at the back of that group. We return to the chasers. 109. Zhang Chulong, the 31-year-old in the pink colours, leads them around the corner. They keep working well together, but unfortunately for these two, they appear to be running out of time. But they are not running out of spirit, and at the very least, they will be securing themselves a spot inside the top 5, which is significant. Particularly given almost 80 riders on the start line in the elite event. Many of them former Olympians and World Championship representatives for China. The helicopter view of the 3 leaders, and you can see by those trees there's no movement in the trees now, so not a great opportunity to take any tactical advantage by going from one side or the other. Jiao. This is located in the suburbs of Shanghai. It's an ancient water town, well known throughout the country, with a history of more than 1,700 years. The little fan-shaped town glimmers like a bright pearl in the landscape of lakes and the mountains in the backdrop. The town is actually known as Pearl Stream. The last 5 kilometres. I'm not sure whether it's just a result of the timing of when we're switching to seeing this group, but every time we take a look, it's the man in pink, Chen Long, who is sitting at the back, saving his energy. He's riding with a cold head and a warm heart. He has been ruthless out in front, desperate to get the win. Precautionary ambulance off to the left-hand side. This is the mass participation event that we're getting a chance to take a look at. So well organised, they've got plenty of police out on the course to make sure the roads are safe. They are fully closed roads. There aren't many mass participation events anywhere in the world where you get the opportunity to race on fully closed roads, and they have ambulances also scattered along just in case there's a touch of wheels and somebody's involved in a crash. They're the sort of people that we hope don't have a busy day. Out to 1 minute and 23 seconds now, the advantage for the leading 3 over the 2 chasers. So it will certainly come down to these 3 to dispute the finish. The 2 chasers, Zhang and Wang, will not be able to close it down. Tightening of the shoes at the back for Chen Long. And it is not just a coincidence of the timing of when the camera switches to the leading group that Chen Long in the pink colours is at the back of the group. He has been sitting at the back, saving his energy. It is 30% easier to sit in somebody's slipstream than what it is to be the rider who is at the front doing the pacemaking. Han Zhujiang is the rider who is at the front in blue. The greyish colours with the polka dot helmet on, that is Li Jingshong. And Li has experience on the track, so no doubt that will serve him well in terms of a sprint finish. And again, as we see the change in at the front, the rider in the pink colours, Chen, continues to sit at the back. The other two should be getting a little bit more vocal about the lack of work that has been done by Chen Long. It's not against the rules, of course. It's just that at the moment, Chen Long is outwitting his two breakaway companions, and he's saving more energy for the inevitable sprint finish between these three. And there he goes again. He still stays at the back as Li Jingshong slots into second position. Han, it is at the front, doing the pacemaking in the blue colours. And the rider in the blue, Han, is the one with the expression on his face that is really telling the story of the kilometres starting to build up in his legs. Camera getting nice and close, giving us a chance to take a glimpse into the eyes and to see whether we can pick up any signs of weaknesses from these three out in front. The final few corners to contend with. Not too many technicalities in terms of the approach towards the finish line, which one, makes it safe, two, makes it difficult for anybody to adopt a tactic that enables them to break away. 23-year-old Li Jingshong once again rolls through to the front. Last opportunity to take on some fluids. One of the traps that you can fall into in cooler conditions like this is that you don't get that sense of thirst on the tongue, and you don't quite drink as much as you would require, and the dehydration can hit you in an instant. Let's hope that that doesn't happen to Li Jingshong, who now finds himself on the front, not too far away from the finish line. Chen Long takes a cagey look across the shoulder just to make sure that the chasing two of Zhang and Wang do not close in. The last time check to them was over 1 minute and 30 seconds, so they're safe from the chasers. The three leaders who have been the most aggressive throughout the race will come down to dispute the line honours. Li seems to be prepared to lead out a long way from the finish line. Han, it is in second spot in the blue colours. Chen Long at the back, as he has been for the past 5 kilometres or so. He's starting to make an approach up towards second position to get himself into the box seat. Li opens up the sprint. Chen is now into the slipstream. He launches his bid for victory. Chen Long was third last year. Can he be first this year? Yes, he is. Chen Long takes the win. Li Jingshong in second position, and Han Zhuzhang, it is in third place. Now the battle for fourth. This is Wang, who is leading them out. Thumbs up between the leaders. They're pretty happy that they've got themselves a spot on the podium. And delighted with second place for Li Jingshong, so he should be. He rode well throughout the race. Did a lot of the pacemaking at the front. A thumbs up to the man in the pink colours, that is Chen Long, who does go out the winner. Here's another look at the sprint finish. Chen Long, in the end, getting the victory comfortably. Tactically, he was just slightly more astute from his breakaway companions. There's plenty of support as well for Li Jingshong, the second place finish at number 501. He did do the lion's share of the pacemaking. This is a sprint for the minor placings. This is Zhang, who is leading out the sprint. They are doing battle for 6th place, and it looks like it is Zhang Winglong who gets over the line for 6th. And they found themselves at 1 minute and 42 seconds behind the leading group. More riders now battling their way through to the finish line, looking to get themselves a finishing spot inside the top 15. This is Hao Binglang, 17-year-old. This is the youngest rider in the elite event, and he will be finishing in 11th spot. That is a strong performance and gives him, no doubt, plenty of hope for the future. Big figure in the white colours, now making his way through to the finish line. In 14th position, that is Zhao, who is a former roller skater, and at 34 years of age is trying his hand at cycling. Now a chance for them to go back to the finishing village and tell the story of the day that was. Here's another look at the sprint finish. Chen Long getting his timing perfect. And after having finished in 3rd position last year, where he was behind Alberto Contador, a former winner of the Giro d'Italia, and former world champion Alessandro Ballan, Chen Long, he did come into the race as one of the pre-race favourites, and he has not disappointed. He's lived up to those expectations, and he's delivered to go out the winner of the 2nd edition of the Giro d'Italia Ride Like a Pro in Shanghai. And good to see Li Jingsong so delighted with 2nd place. Likewise with Han, number 306 in the blue colours. He should be equally pleased with his 3rd place finish. They all get an opportunity to stand on the podium. And I'm sure that they will welcome a warm Italian coffee. Confirmation of those results in 2 hours and 13 minutes. Chen Long taking the victory ahead of Li Jingsong, and their other breakaway companion just 1 second behind, Han Zhujiang in 3rd place. It was then Zhang Chulong in 4th position ahead of Wang in 5th place. The time gaps back to the remnants of the race. It was starting to close down towards the finish line because of the tactical game that was being played out in front. But Chen Long knew exactly what he was doing, biding his time, waiting for the sprint finish. And importantly, a chance to take a happy snap and get some fond memories of the day that was. Thumbs up at the start from Gu, former Chinese national road champion. Got underway with cool conditions, just 15 degrees. As the peloton rolled out, it didn't take too long for the action to really get started. It certainly was an aggressive affair. And to highlight just how aggressive it was, the average speed in the end for the winner was 40.07 kilometres per hour. That was quick. This was a mechanical problem for Li, the young 18-year-old who was very aggressive at the start of the race. We saw some images of the man in the purple colours near the front very early on, but unfortunately for him, a mechanical problem brought his day unstuck. The rider in the white colours, Li Jisong, he was very vocal out in front with his breakaway companions, and he was keen to get them all working. Tongue wagging from Han, former medalist at the Chinese track championships and also at the road national championships. Great to see so many numbers in the mass participation ride, somewhere in the vicinity of 1,500 people taking to the start line. And as they were celebrating and making it through, the stars of the show were out in front doing battle for race honours. There was a concerted effort amongst the chasers. They did get themselves well organised, but there was simply too much horsepower out in front. And as the 3 leaders were making their way back towards Shanghai for the finish, the rider in the pink colours, Chen Long, was playing an early tactical game. He was saving his energy, sitting on a little bit more than the others, who were making sure that the group continued to stay away from the chasers. And as they headed back towards Shanghai, they did get an opportunity to see some of the riders in the mass participation event, and no doubt those riders would have relished the opportunity to see the elites out in front. When it came down to the sprint finish, it was Li Jingsong who led the sprint out, but patiently waiting in the wings was Chen Long, who got over the top just at the end to win by 1 bike length. Chen Long will not tire of watching highlights of that sprint finish. Let's now hear from the winner, the man who finished in 3rd place last year.
好的，非常恭喜成龙今天获得我们的第1名啊！您觉得今天这个赛道的设置对冲刺类的选手有什么影响吗？
这个赛道的话，设置的话
Well, the course really was quite long, but very flat and fast.
擅长有很宽的冲刺。
It's a safe course because it wasn't too narrow,
特别是大集团的话，
so it was easy to give my best.
非常适合冲刺选手。
哦，适合冲刺选手。那其实今天我看今天风其实挺大的，风向是会对这个比赛产生一些影响的嘛？
有影响，因为
The wind was indeed a factor. It was strong in various parts, and that affected my pace, especially the stretches of the course that were along the river.
能骑到32、3左右，这样。
所以就是今天你比赛之前，你会因为就是这样的环境，有没有什么提前一些准备吗？
早上的时候
I made sure to eat a little more than usual this morning because I knew the weather was going to be cold. So the physical effort required was certainly more than usual.
状态也不是非常好，体能跟不上。
但是还是取得了很好的成绩。啊，非常恭喜你，非常恭喜你，谢谢，谢谢，好，谢谢。
And now we can really spend some time to refuel. So too will Li Jingshong, the runner-up, who looked delighted with his performance, and so he should be, finishing in 2nd position.
好，非常恭喜李劲松今天获得第2名啊！那你我听说今天你的进攻其实非常的猛烈，那你觉得你如何看待今天比赛呢？
我感觉今天的比赛非常好，因为
Oh, I really enjoyed the race. It was a really nice course, and for me, that was a good result.
非常意境的这个就是林道中间骑行，非常的美丽，也非常的舒适。
那今天这个环境有没有对你的比赛产生一些影响？
今天其实
Well, the weather conditions certainly made it challenging. It was a challenge of both our technique and our skills.
困难的一个挑战吧，但是也挑战了我们这个技术，让比赛变得也是非常激烈。
但是还是克服了这样的环境，非常恭喜，好，感谢感谢。
Well, the 23-year-old certainly should be satisfied with that performance, and hopefully it inspires him to come back next year and perhaps go one better.
好的，恭喜韩旭翔获得我们的第3名啊！那您觉得今天您对你的表现有什么评价吗？
表现还行。
I'm satisfied with my performance.
今天这个天气是不是对你们就是比赛会有一些影响？
对，因为天气。
Yes, I'm satisfied because it was colder than usual on the course, which made it even more challenging.
那您觉得今天就是其他选手对你来看，您觉得就是谁就是有没有什么评价？
我感觉因为
The standard of the field in today's race was very high. Most riders come from a decent pedigree, so it was really enjoyable experience for me.
你包括他的新车的那个录像了、技术了都很好，他们评价感觉都挺高的。
了解，所以还是取得了非常好的成绩，非常恭喜你，恭喜恭喜！好，谢谢。
And the smile on Hun's face really does tell the story of a man who is satisfied with his 3rd place finish, and so he should be. The 3 out in front proved to be stronger than the rest. The mass participation ride continuing to make its way across the line. This has been quite a battle as well, and they have completed the course in a pretty quick time, and some big celebrations for the rider wearing the BMC colours, and that might be enough to get himself an invitation to the elite event next year. And significantly, we see both expats and locals participating in the race. The winning time for Zhu, just 2 minutes slower than the winner of the elite event. That brings us to a close for the 2nd edition of the Giro d'Italia Ride Like a Pro. It's been a huge success, particularly for the winner, Chen Long, after having finished 3rd last year. What can he do in 2021? Until next time, it's bye for now.